Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be as you are watching this. Welcome to another Office Hours here on Hosting.com's Agency Success. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the agency trainer here and happy to open my virtual office doors to all of you every week. And we'll talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about, which, if you were here for the pre-show, we talked about parrot sitting. Apparently, that's a thing. People hire parrot sitters because there's going to be a website for it, right, Sherry? Uh, Quite interesting. Are you building a parrot sitting website, Sherry, or are you parrot sitting? I missed that. Anyway, I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it is. So there you go. We have several interesting tidbits of WordPress news to talk about as we go. And if you are just now joining us in Zoom, open up the chat, say hello, and the link to ask your questions is waiting on you there. You can ask a question at any time. If you can't attend live, just go to wpnathan.com and click the Ask a Question button in the top right, and you can get your question in the queue, and you can review the replay and find your answer. So currently 6 questions in the list, and so we have a good start on things to talk about. Let's begin with a little update. Wow, that's really large. Let's try making it slightly smaller. All right, little update on WordPress 6.9.1. Still no firm date on when that is going to be released. What you're looking at here on the screen, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. These are all the tickets that are currently slated for inclusion in WordPress 6.9.1. Now, there was a core meeting held today in the Make WordPress Slack. The next meeting is in 2 weeks, and there was no date discussed other than, hey, there's all these tickets out there for inclusion. So there you go. We've gone ahead and updated all the sites we managed to WordPress 6.9. Not seeing any issues yet. So hopefully you're not experiencing any issues either. But no firm date yet on the next version. Something else that I'll mention is my friend Chris Lemma has started blogging a lot again, which is, I think, a great thing. I always appreciate Chris's thoughts and insights. And he's talking a lot about AI, and I would strongly recommend that you check out some of these articles. I've dropped the link in the chat. It's chrislemma.com/blog. Whoops. How about I don't click something? There we go. So he's talked a lot in the last couple of weeks about some of the why behind AI and how to get AI to do what you want it to do maybe a little bit better. This one in particular is an excellent post about not only telling your AI tool what to do, but giving it some context around why. Why are you asking it to do these certain things, like your whole decision-making process? These 2 posts in particular are quite good at just thinking a little more deeply about prompting AI better. So if you are a person who is using AI in your work, I would recommend reading these articles. They're quite good. Let's see. Another little bit of news is that the old Amelia calendar is new again. So you may remember Amelia was a very large, complicated, some might say bloated WordPress plugin that managed to do event booking and connect to Zoom and other webinar tools and Google and Outlook and other calendars and get all that stuff in sync, all from a WordPress plugin. Now, it became a little bit unwieldy, and the team behind Amelia announced last year, probably 6 months ago, they were just starting from scratch and rewriting it from the ground up. And as of December 22nd, Amelia 9.0 is live, and there's an excellent post-mortem discussion here. I've dropped the link in the chat there at wpamelia.com. And it's a really interesting overview of all the things that they've done. So take a look at this. It may not be a replacement for an events calendar plugin. It is a pretty decent booking option, though. So take a look. Read what they've done, especially if you, like me, might have purchased a lifetime deal for them a million years ago. So, yeah, it's new, and it's included if you purchased that LTD a long time ago. Speaking of interesting lifetime deals, I know some of you took advantage of the Fluent Community lifetime deal last year when that plugin was announced. And one of the things that was definitely lacking was an app. An Android or iPhone app. And take a look here. This is a group called Lazy Coders, and they have created the app to connect Fluent Community. So I think, as I understand it, and I could be wrong here, so double check me on this, but I believe the Fluent team worked with this group to create this app. Anyhow, take a look at this. This might just be what you need to bring your Fluent community into an app. And there is currently a pretty decent lifetime deal on this as well. So if you are a Fluent community person like I am, and I really do like that plugin, this is definitely something we're looking at. So give that a quick look. Let's see. What else can we talk about? Yes. WordCamp Europe is scheduled and tickets are now available for WordCamp Europe in Krakow, Poland. That's coming up the 4th through the 6th of June of 2026. So if you are in this part of the world, tickets are now available. And WordCamp Europe is always one of the great WordPress events every year. So take a look at that. I'll drop that link for you in the chat. Finally, the thing that I am the most excited about is this, at least this week. This is a really hard to read website with a really interesting tool that this developer has created called Hey Wapu. It's a lot of fun. It's not really available yet, but I want you to see what is possible using some of the command palette and AI hooks that are available in WordPress now. So let me just drop this in the chat, and down here at the bottom, you can access a WordPress Playground link that has this plugin pre-installed. So I'm just going to click here. That's going to launch a Playground instance and install and activate the Hello Wapu plugin, which you will see is down here at this little chat. Now, what this plugin does, it's like a built-in WordPress-oriented LLM. And so if we, well, I've closed the link, but basically they have taken the entire training set and put it into a single file. It's about 22 megabytes. So it's able to run in the browser. You don't have to have any outside connections or anything. And it knows all the things about WordPress. So watch here. How do I write a new post? And look, it already gave me a link here, but let's talk to it. Look at that. Open the editor to start a post. So I'm going to click create a new post. And look at that. It goes to the post. And this is not some, it's not an agentic browser. This is a plugin within WordPress that's actually controlling all the things. Isn't that amazing? I think that's really cool. How do I add a featured image to this post? So let's see what it says. Upload new files to your media library. It's a little incomplete. This is kind of a beta. Oh, look at that. Boom. Interesting. So anyway, I think this is kind of cool. And it shows you the beginnings of what is possible with AI tools in WordPress. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this. And right now you can just see it in this Playground instance, but I agree with you, class. This really does have potential, especially as we're really just the tip of the iceberg at AI integration in WordPress. So pretty cool. All right, so many things to look at today. Hopefully some of those are interesting to you. And let us turn our attention to this week's questions. Before I do that, I do want to drop in the chat the link bundle. If you click that first link here at upcoming.myagencysuccess.com, you'll see our link tree of upcoming live streams. January 20th is my next live stream, that's not office hours. And we'll be talking about how to get WordPress emails to the inbox and what are some of the things that stand in the way of WordPress sending email and it not reaching the inbox, ending up in spam or sometimes not delivered at all. So we're going to get into all that alphabet soup of SPF and DKIM and DMARC and all that stuff and talk about how we can make WordPress emails more reliable than they are just out of the box. There's also a really interesting live stream coming up on the 27th with Daphne, the SEO, the head of the SEO team, content team at hosting.com. And she's going to be talking about rich content and video and how important that is. So Make sure that you've signed up for all of these. They're all free, all open. And of course, they will be available as replays. And the link to view those is there in the chat as well. That's replays.myagencysuccess.com. All right, well, let's turn our attention then to the questions that have been asked. So let me one more time drop in the link in the chat. If you need to ask a question today, we'd love for you to do that. And the link to do so is in the chat. So first come, first serve, and that begins today with Awesome Paul. Hey, Paul, how are you? Happy New Year. And how long are we allowed to ask that? Quickly, how long can you say Happy New Year? Are we past that point already? Just sound off in the chat. We might be past that point already, Paul. So I have a site on Cloudflare, which is generating the SSL certificate and backup certificate. I logged into a site cPanel and saw this. Okay. Okay. So the server is not seeing an SSL certificate. Okay. My thought is that it's not a problem until it is a problem. Okay. Well, okay, sort of. This should not matter as long as Cloudflare is doing its thing. However, if something does happen at Cloudflare, the cPanel certificate should be ready at a moment's notice and it should be fixed. Yes, you are correct. Let me quickly get into Cloudflare over here in another browser tab, just so I can, they have a good actually a good visual representation of how SSL works right here in the settings. However, it seems as though I'm not able to log into Cloudflare. So let's take a quick peek. We can just get here into WP. Whoop, that's the wrong one. Let's look at wpnathan.com because there'll be some information there. Okay. So if you look at the SSL in the overview and we take a look at, well, they've gotten a, go figure, Cloudflare has changed some things. So you can't see the nice little graphical overview that they had. What you should be seeing in your Cloudflare account is that the universal and the backup certificates are issued. That happens whenever you point your name servers at Cloudflare. Let's take, oh, maybe it's right here. Yes. Okay. This is what we want. And why is that not? Okay. Anyway, so there's several different SSL modes that you can select from with Cloudflare. Full is probably the one that most folks have. And what that does, it says Cloudflare is putting out the SSL certificate between the user's browser and Cloudflare, which protects the traffic, the form fills, all the information back and forth. It protects that. Now, the other SSL certificate right here is the one that the origin server, your host, creates, and that encrypts the traffic between Cloudflare and your origin server. Now, full means that this certificate that Cloudflare generates and this certificate that the origin server creates are both signed by a standard signing service, such as Let's Encrypt or Komodo certificates or Google Trust, which is what Cloudflare uses for this one. Your server is hopefully set up for auto SSL that's using something like Let's Encrypt or that sort of thing. So if this has to be the case, both from a signing service in order for full to work. Now you can do flexible. No, I'm sorry, that I started off wrong. When both of these certificates are signed by an actual provider, like Let's Encrypt here and Google Trust here, that's full strict. Full is when the server is generating a self-signed certificate. Okay. So, and it's fine. It's still encrypted. Now you can use this next one, which is flexible, which means that the only SSL that exists is between the browser and Cloudflare connects directly to the origin server. Now that's not ideal. It's unlikely, but still potential that this traffic might somehow get intercepted. So you really want to have one of these two options selected. For most of our sites, it's using full because we have a self-signed certificate from the server. Now, all of that to just provide some context to what's going on here. In this case, Paul, what's happening is your server is not generating either a self-signed certificate or a Let's Encrypt certificate. It ought to have both, most likely. So this is a conversation to have with your host that, hey, look, my server is not generating an SSL certificate properly, and this does need to be fixed. Is it the world is burning down? No, but like the match is lit. Okay. So it's something you definitely want to look into pretty soon, because, yeah, this should not be happening. So I've seen instances where, let's just say, if Let's Encrypt is not allowed in your allow rule for Cloudflare, if you're running security rules, and the Let's Encrypt is not allowed in that allow rule, then the server can't generate a Let's Encrypt certificate. So that could be part of the issue. But either way, your server ought to be able to generate a self-signed certificate, which will let you be in this full category. Does that make sense? I realize I just put out a lot of information. Jeffrey says, so if you have a certificate on your website host server, strict is not needed. No, I mean, see, here's the thing. Strict just says both of the SSL certificates are created by a certificate authority, like Let's Encrypt on the server side. If it's a self-signed certificate, it is literally the same level of encryption as a Let's Encrypt certificate, or even the Google Trust certificate that Cloudflare generates. The difference in a self-signed certificate is there's not an authority verifying that the certificate is legitimate, but you know that it's legitimate because your server created it. So it's, in this case, it's not as big of an issue that it's a certificate authority, a CA here, that has created it. Self-signed certificates are just as secure as the ones that are certified by an authority. Does that make sense? Same level of encryption. It's just nobody's given it a stamp of approval, but it still works. And for your case, you know your server generated, so it's fine, and Cloudflare will recognize that and connect. Okay, that was a lot of things. Anybody else follow-ups on that, or is everybody okay? Lots of things there. Yeah. So, Paul, the next step is to talk to your host. Next up, Doris, you had a similar question, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to that. And let's just move into Doris's question, which is similar. All right. Okay, Doris. So, Cloudflare issue, a site has been working fine for months. I was last on it January 3rd, but on January 6th, the site went down and the error displayed was the page isn't redirecting properly. Firefox detected the server's redirecting request in a way that will never complete. Okay, so you've got a redirect loop that's happening. Site was down everywhere. The hosting company determined it was a problem with Cloudflare. Interesting. I paused this site on Cloudflare and the site came back up. There were no changes made to the site or to Cloudflare before Jan 6, but after pausing, there were some plugins that needed to be updated. That shouldn't have caused a problem. This morning, I unpaused it to see if there was an error code or something to help me diagnose the issue. The site went down again, same error message, and I have no idea where to start. Okay. That is really weird, Doris. And okay, yes, if that was going to be one of the things I suggested, but I wouldn't have suspected this as the likely culprit. So, Doris, you're saying it was the SSL. And so that is, that can happen if the SSL isn't validated, it'll get in a redirect loop trying to find the right SSL. So there you go. That's great. So you changed it from flexible to full, and that solved the problem. Interesting. So what will sometimes happen, Doris, is back into this, and I'm glad you prompted me to get to this question next because we're here already. What can happen is, and Paul, check this in your Cloudflare settings for this domain in question. Has it dropped down to flexible, or is it still set at full or full strict? See if it dropped down to flexible, because what can happen is Cloudflare will notice that there's a problem with the SSL certificate over here on the host that used to let it connect as full, and it will like automatically drop down to flexible, right? In trying to fix the problem. So that can sometimes happen. I would make sure, Doris, that the mechanism that to create the SSL certificate on your host is working properly. Okay, Paul, yours is still set to full and it's working okay. I bet it won't stay working okay. If you're showing this error, you may be in a grace period or something, but it's not going to keep working full because that host certificate's going to become invalid. Yeah. So that's good. Great reminder. Melanie's saying she had a similar thing and she had to adjust a full strict. That's a little weird. But yeah, an SSL loop like this can happen if there's a problem with one of the SSL certificates. Great. Good stuff, y'all. Okie dokie. Again, if you have a question to ask, the link to do so is in the chat, and we will move on to our next contestant, Sue. Hey, Sue. Oh, the many things here. Beginning with a non-obligatory Happy New Year. Migrating to hosting.com plugin question. Building a very simple brochure used to be Dreamweaver until last week website. History. Very few plugins, no forms, hardly any images. When it launches at hosting.com, do I need... Okay, let me pause for a minute. Sue, which flavor of hosting.com are we talking about here? Are we talking about the managed hosting powered by rocket.net, or is it a VPS or dedicated server? Okay, it's managed hosting. So that changes everything here. Because probably you need nothing else. So let's just work down your list. Number one, a backup plugin. I don't want to use solid WP. What's the best that migrates easily? Does it have its own? Okay, so the rocket.net powered managed hosting has a built-in backup. By the way, as do the virtual and dedicated servers that the VPS and the virtual dedicated servers that hosting.com offers. All those have built-in backup systems that are going to do a daily backup, whether it's cPanel or this managed system. That's all built in by default, and it's just going to run. So particularly with rocket.net, it's just built in. You'll see it in the control panel. Now, unlike many managed WordPress hosting platforms, the rocket.net powered managed WordPress will allow you to have your own backup plugin in addition to their own environment level backup. So that's a real plus. Backup plugins are often disallowed by managed WordPress hosting. So should you use one? It's a great question, Sue. For this site, it sounds like this is not a hypercritical site with lots of things going on. It's just a brochure site, right? So the built-in backup is going to be sufficient. Now, what you should be aware of, though, is that I'm virtually certain, okay, with that asterisk, verify me on this. I think it's a 14-day backup. So if you're fine with, I've got 2 weeks of backups, I don't have to worry about it, then you're good. And that's built in, it's part of the cost. If you want to add another backup plugin, for example, if you're about to do some work on it and you want to take your own backup and you don't want to use the built-in backup to do that, you can add any WordPress backup plugin like all-in-one migration or WP migrate or what are all the other ones, and feel free, drop in the chat. Anybody, what's your favorite WordPress backup plugin? Drop it in the chat. Any of those are going to work. And so you can run that and download a local backup if you want to do that. But even if you want to do an on-demand backup, the rocket.net interface will let you do that. Okay. Next. What about light speed? You don't need to worry about any of that with rocket.net. It's just, it's going to be using the Cloudflare Enterprise backend, and you won't have to worry about it, especially for a brochure site. Now, every license of the managed WordPress by rocket.net, whenever you buy a site there, they're going to give you for free a license for WP Rocket, which is, a caching and optimization plugin. You can use that or not. I really doubt you'll need it with just a brochure site. But you can, and it will give you that for free. So no, you do not need light speed. Number 3, this will run through Cloudflare. Okay, so it's going to run through Cloudflare whenever you're using managed WordPress powered by Rocket. Okay, so it is transparently using Cloudflare Enterprise, like the really expensive level of Cloudflare. You don't even have to touch any of that. When you move the site over there, they're going to tell you to create a CNAME and a text record, I think, and they handle the rest. Like you don't even have to set up Cloudflare for this at all. Just like at the domain name, you can just point the DNS at rocket.net and it handles everything. Number 4, I'll be a delegate on the hosting.com account and then would like to be removed. I figure I can turn this over to them. The client is buying a maintenance package from, okay, I won't be maintaining the site. So what I would tell you to do is set yourself up as a reseller, Sue, for rocket.net. And you can do that. There's an affiliates link at the bottom of hosting.com. Set that up, give the client your link, and you'll make some money on the back end of this. Let them set it up for themselves and add you to the account. And then you can be removed that way. That's what I would do. And you'll make a few dollars on the other end of this. Does that make sense? I think that pretty well covers it. It's a really simple process. If you want to build locally or build on some server, I know you have like a dev server, Sue. When you get ready to migrate it into rocket.net, they'll do that for you at no cost. Depending on their, how busy they are at the moment, they might even do it right there while you're in the chat. Otherwise, they may put in a migration ticket and it takes 24 hours. Really, really quick and easy. Let us move on to the next question, which happens to be from class. Hey, class. All right. Which version of PHP should I use for new WordPress sites? Here we go. My client sites are all on PHP 8.2, which is still getting security support. 8.3 just went to security support only. 8.4 is halfway through active support period, and 8.5 is newly launched. So, do you recommend 8.4 for new site development? Any issues with key plugins like Gravity Forms, Woo, PMP, etc.? Great question. Quick poll in the chat. What version of PHP are you using for your average WordPress site right now? Yeah, that's what I figured. Most folks are around 8.2. I think we are for most sites as well. That is a first quarter project for us, though, to move up to 8.4. Paul, if you say 5.4, we're coming for you, okay? Yes, so we are launching new sites under 8.4 and don't have any issues. Now, here's the caveat, class, and anybody else that's thinking through this. We're going to do a quick little Google exercise here. WordPress, PHP support. Every major plugin is going to have a page similar to this where they talk about their PHP compatibility. And what you will see is that WordPress core is still flagging 8.4 as beta support. Now, I haven't had any issues with it at all. Like zero, not even close to that. No issues that we've been able to see at all on any site with 8.4. But it is technically still beta support. And 8.5 the same way. So WordPress core, you're probably good at 8.4. Let's take a look at Gravity Forms PHP support. Every major plugin is going to have a page like this. Again, let's find 8.4. Maybe let's spell it correctly. Let's see. Gravity Forms has been tested and confirmed compatible with PHP 8.4. And I knew that it was. I just wanted to go through this exercise of showing you every plugin ought to have a page like this. Every main plugin. WooCommerce, it's not an issue. Paid Membership Pro, I believe they are guaranteed compatible with 8.3 with no reported issues with 8.4. But I think they say if you find an issue, let us know and we'll deal with it. So you'll want to look at your core stack and just make sure that all of your main foundational plugins are fine with 8.4. Probably they are because, class, I'm sure you're using great plugins. Now, the other thing to think about here is really the add-on plugins, okay? Particularly when it comes to WooCommerce, because there isn't a more poorly written class of plugins, no pun intended, class, a poorly written category of plugins than WooCommerce add-ons. There's some really poor code out there that are built that are in WooCommerce add-ons. So If you're using any add-ons, those are the ones that I would be the most concerned about for compatibility. And that goes true for Gravity Forms. Any add-ons out there, you need to make sure those. So your big core foundational plugins are probably going to be just fine. It's the add-ons that I would really look at. So does that make sense? So for typical sites, we're launching at 8.4 and then not experiencing any issues. And we'll be rolling up all of our older managed sites from 8.2 to 8.4 sometime the first quarter of this year. All right, great question, class. Thanks for an excuse to talk about that. All right, next up is Andy. Andy, are you here? Andy, oh, hey, Andy. I maintain several websites for my employers and a few community organizations. One of the websites I maintain is hosted at GoDaddy, and I haven't been able to convince my boss to move to another host. I use hosting.com for all my other websites. Excellent. So I took your advice on moving DNS management to Cloudflare. Superb. I have the shared universal SSL edge configured, and I also created a TLS origin certificate at Cloudflare and installed it at GoDaddy. Okay, good. That's a good option. Paul, you could do that too. If the host is having issues for some reason creating it, Cloudflare, you can create a certificate and just install it on your host if you have access to that. So Andy, good job. That was a great idea. We have been paying for managed SSL at GoDaddy because I had trouble getting free certificates installed, but it only covers the original domain, not subdomains, and they want us to pay for managed SSL. Yeah, it's a nightmare. The Cloudflare certificate appears to be installed correctly. Do I need to maintain the managed SSL from GoDaddy, or will the Cloudflare certificate be adequate? I do have a WooCommerce store on the subdomain. Okay. Let me ask you this, Andy. The certificate that you generated from Cloudflare, was that a wildcard certificate that it will cover any? Okay, awesome. So you should be fine. Now, the asterisk beside this is I have no idea what GoDaddy is going to do in their hosting, right? If it's working now, probably you're going to be fine. But the weird things can happen in a hosting environment like that. Does that make sense? So probably you're just fine. I don't anticipate an issue there. You would, if you want to 100% remove any issues, and I don't know if GoDaddy's hosting, is this like a shared hosting account on GoDaddy? So I don't know if they allow self-signed certificates. It's built in. If you have cPanel, is it a cPanel hosting situation? Or is it their own proprietary deal? If it's a cPanel situation, there should be a little icon in cPanel where you can generate an SSL, a self-signed certificate. I would probably go that direction because then it's all right there in cPanel. The issue with the self-sign is I have to update it every 90 days. Oh, really? Okay, I've not seen a self-signed certificate that has to be manually updated. But that could just be a GoDaddy thing. I mean, it pushes you to buy their paid SSL certificates, right? Yeah. Okay. So other people reporting that, yes, you can't do that. So awesome. Stacy, yeah, you probably could do a cron job to update it. And that might be, I mean, honestly, Andy, you've gone this far. It might be worth spending a little time with your favorite AI chat tool and let them talk you through setting up in cPanel a cron job to update it. That might be possible if GoDaddy gives you access to cron. But all that to say, probably you're fine with the Cloudflare generated certificate. Probably you're fine. Because the thing is, since Cloudflare owns the name servers, it can generate a certificate that should work just fine at your host. However, the host is who the host is, so it might stop working. You can always go back to the other certificates. Now, I meant to share this earlier by way of, I got egg on my face today, and what's the point of having egg on your face if you can't share it with your closest friends, right? So you all have heard me on my soapbox about certain hosts that sell SSL certificates for hundreds of dollars per year and how ridiculous that is in 2026. As I was reviewing my credit card statement from the past year in part of the yearly closing of the books, I discovered that for I don't know how many years, folks. I've been paying $119 a year to our favorite host that was just mentioned in the chat. I don't know how I missed that, but I've been doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. And I did manage to get a refund, but there you have it. So if you've ever made that mistake and you've paid for it, you are in excellent company and we'll all make t-shirts. Okay. Anyway, lest you think you're the only one who would ever make a mistake like that, I offer myself as tribute. Okie dokie. Oh, Paul, thank you for that. All right. Andy, are we good there? Anything else? Are you all set? I think you're going to be just fine with what you've done. Good job for figuring that out and making it work. Okie dokie. Next up is Ben Bradley. Are you here, Ben? There you are. I meant to share that little bit of news at the beginning, but I got so excited about the WAPU thing, I forgot. Anyway, all right. Here are Ben's questions, and this should be a fun little conversation in the chat. What are the top 3 plugins for 2026 in multiple website management dashboards, backups, and security? So, sound off. Let's take these one at a time. What is your favorite multiple website management dashboard tool? Got to vote for main WP. And that's the only vote. So in my agency for many, many years, we've been using Infinite WP. It is certainly not the best, but it works just fine for us and it's free. So I have no compelling reason to change. It works quite well. We were in the beta test 1.5 million years ago. Let's see in the list, main WP, Blog Vault, WP Remote, Umbrella, main WP, Solid Central, a lot of main WPs. Yeah, main WPs really, it's quite good. Yeah, a lot of folks using main WP. I know the folks behind main WP, and they're really, really good people. Solid team. All right. How about backups? What are you using as a backup tool / plugin? Vivid. Vivid is a good plugin. You know what I don't like about Vivid is that you have to install WordPress before you can restore the backup. I'm not a fan of that. Vivid is taking the cake, yes, or the vote. Vivid and Softaculous server side. Yep, Softaculous in cPanel does have a built-in backup tool that will push out to a remote destination. Solid backups, Backup Buddy, Updraft. Yeah, kind of the usual candidates. How about security? WordPress security. Yeah, we're still using Solid Security. I do think it's the best approach to WordPress security in a plugin. Okay, Elizabeth, we'll do that in just a second. Elizabeth has a similar question. All right. Solid Security and WP Umbrella Security. Good. If I were starting all the way over again today, I'd probably look at Umbrella really, really carefully. They got a pretty good system. That includes Patch Stack, which I think is very important. All right. Good stuff, everybody. Thanks for asking that question, Ben. And we'll go ahead and skip forward to Elizabeth's question because it too related to backups. Now, just pausing for a minute, and Beth made a great point in the chat. So, and Jamie, I'm going to come back to that also that you just mentioned. So, all of these solutions, right, for multi-site all these things, right, those backups and security plugins. That's where, yes, the managed WordPress hosting powered by Rocket.net that hosting.com offers is more expensive than, per site when you stack up a bunch of sites versus going with a virtual or dedicated server. However, you don't have to figure out all these tools out. It's all built in to a managed WordPress system. And so that's That's the benefit of not having to figure these things out. And I do want to mention, I forgot to talk about what we were using as an agency for backup. Jamie mentioned that Mike Demo, and by the way, if you haven't met Mike, Mike is the North American rep for hosting.com for agencies, and he is fantastic. Several of you have contacted me individually, just saying how appreciative you were for the recommendation to talk to Mike and Mike's work with you as you've moved your agency into hosting.com products. Mike is awesome. He knows his stuff, and he's been on the agency side. Yeah, he's great. Wonderful to work with. Highly, highly recommended if you haven't interacted with Mike. But Mike mentioned a backup called Akiba Backups. And Jamie, that's what we've moved to as an agency. Now, you've probably never heard of Akiba Backups. It is it's been in the Joomla world for years. And they have a WordPress plugin, and it works delightfully. It's a little more to set up. It's very technical. But once you see how it works, it was a little bit of a learning curve for us. But the reason I like this is it is a WordPress, it's a plugin, but we can set it up to run with a cron job in cPanel. So it's bulletproof. It works every time. And it's routinely backing up gigantic sites, some of which are, 8, 12, 15 gigabytes. It's routinely backing those up on a regular basis. And it pushes out, we're still using Dropbox. Yeah. We're still using Dropbox. So works quite well. Jamie, you're mentioning you don't have cPanel. If you have a way to set a cron job, that's all you need. It gives you the thing to put in the cron job and it just runs. We moved over to Akiba in December, and we've not had, in 100 plus websites, we've not had a single failed backup in 30 plus days. It is remarkable, remarkably good. So anyway, it is techie. Okay, let's move to Elizabeth's question. Also relating to backups. I want a backup that I can download and store forever. Most host backups need the host to restore. I want to be able to restore myself. I love Backup Buddy, but the new version of Solid Backups does not work the same way. What is your suggestion to do what I want? Okay. So Elizabeth, and this sort of factored into all these other recommendations, right? So you saw the recommendations of things like WP Vivid seemed to be the one that most folks are using, and there's plenty more. And I just mentioned Akiba, which, there is the downfall of Akiba. It's a learning curve, but once you see how it works, it makes total sense to me now. So my question for you, Elizabeth, is, do you need it to be a scheduled backup that runs automatically, or is it just like a one-off backup? Automatically. Okay, so Elizabeth, I would probably the easiest one to, and do you want it to be free, or are you willing to pay for it? If you're willing to pay for it, I would look at Updraft. If you want a free one, WP Vivid is great. You probably wouldn't even use the paid level of WP Vivid. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the downfall to Vivid is if you want to restore it, you have to install WordPress first, and then you can restore the Vivid backup into it. So it's not a direct replacement for how Solid Backups, for example, backs up the whole site. Updraft does back up the whole site. So take a look at those. I would recommend that you start with WP Vivid and just see if you like it, because that might just solve the problem right there with $0 invested. Ben, yes, Akiba does have a migration wizard. Duplicator is also a really nice plugin. A little pricey, but it's quite good. Pausing quickly. Did anybody else have a question about plugin recommendations for any of these things we've just talked about before we move out of this subject? If you did, let me know quickly. Otherwise, we're going to move right on to Paul's question. Okay. Paul, a client in the Denver, Colorado area wants a map to show the areas that they service. Denver is too big of an area with traffic, so she would like to include a list of local communities on a map. Going to Google Maps, you can enter a city and it will nicely outline the city. Is there a way to select multiple cities like that or just one area? Okay, great question. And you're correct and really without, the answer is no. You can't select multiple areas in a standard Google map unless you have like a customized map, and it's going to take a Google Maps API key and all that stuff. Is the goal here? You're not trying to give directions, right? You just want to display a local service area map, right? Is that pretty much it? Yeah, just show okay. So make a graphic. So do this. Colorado County Map SVG. Just download a county map, overlay it, and like do a screenshot of your Google map and just trace the outline. Make a quick graphic. It probably won't take that long, and it'll do exactly what you want it to do. Then you're done. No Google embed weirdness or anything like that. I would just make an image. Does that sound possible? It would certainly be simpler. The other options would be you would have to, it would take a plugin like Melanie's suggesting MapPress or others, and it's going to be hassle. I would just make a graphic. It's also going to be a lot faster on the page. Yeah, so present it to the client and let her draw the little outline, and then you can just recreate it. Yeah. I would absolutely just go with an image. We used to have, we still have the client. They're a beach community on the Gulf Coast. And we had this fancy Google map that showed their location pinned on a map and all of this. And all of a sudden I started getting billed from Google with high traffic. And this stupid map was costing us like $20 a month on Google API calls. And I'm like, forget that. And we just created a map like I just described to you, colorized it to match the brand with the little pins on it and put it on the site. And it works great. Problem solved. Okay, next up is Jamie. Hey, Jamie. All righty. I'm assisting a client in improving her site that was built with a terrible service called WeTreat. Never heard of it. One aspect that needed improvement was accessibility. Some items minor, some major. When I pointed out the accessibility elements needed to be fixed, I said, this can get a website owner in a lot of trouble. He said, oh, really? I've never heard of that. Meanwhile, he's the web dev on the site. Yeah. What kind of trouble could she get in? How in the heck am I supposed to respond to that? Tell the client to Google accessibility lawsuits. They'll find all the things, right? So let's just take a quick look at the website. It's a decent looking website, but yeah, it finds some accessibility issues. They have a patient portal. So particularly the challenge with a lot of accessibility lawsuits center around you are making services available only on the website or like there's a benefit if you can access on the website versus another method, like a phone call or that sort of thing. One of the early accessibility lawsuits was the Domino's Pizza lawsuit, and that's because they gave deals on the web that weren't available if you called in. So that put an advantage to people without disabilities of getting better pricing because they could access the website and people with disabilities couldn't. So, clearly that's a legal action. Now it's gotten a lot broader now, but particularly if there are things in the patient portal, if they're offering things through their booking system that they're not offering in person or with a phone call, then yeah, it could be a real problem. But even then, the way the accessibility laws are moving, and I'm not here with an accessibility expert T-shirt on, but the way they're moving is, look, just the convenience of booking online is a right? It's 2026. It should be a right. I shouldn't have to call if I don't want to. So all of these things need to be moved more toward accessible options. Booking portals are some of the worst accessible things you can find. Calendars, event calendars, some of the worst at accessibility problems. Anyway, what trouble could they get in? Can't type. How about these? Just Google it. So many lawsuits. And the point, honestly, is for a business owner, is not even are they going to win? It's I got to have this in my life for the next 3 years, right? I got this court case hanging over me like a dark cloud. Um, Good grief, and got to pay lawyers whether I win or lose. Like it's a mess. So that's your answer, right? So yeah, the question was, how do I respond to that? Dear Mr. Current Website Person, Google accessibility websites against spas, and you'll have the answer to that question. Yeah. And Melanie, you're exactly right. There are lawyers across the country, not just in certain states, who have their whole business is drive-by accessibility demands. They hire one person with a disability to go attempt to use 1,000 websites. And when they can't, it's a lawsuit or it's a claim letter first. Yeah. Huge mess. But I get it. Also, that's one side of things. The other side of things is I think we should all be advocates that the entire web should be accessible. Like, why wouldn't you want any person to be able to use your website? It's a complicated issue, clearly. Okie dokie. A few questions left. Let's try to get them in here in the last couple of minutes. Both of them are from Gene. Hey, Gene. All righty. I have a monthly subscription set up in my project management tool, which manages billing automatically through Stripe. The invoice is sent from the PM tool, but payment processed by Stripe. The credit card info is stored in Stripe. Good. Oh, as the project management tool is sunsetting, I'm transitioning. Ugh. Could you walk me through invoicing directly in Stripe? Would I set up the subscription there and invoice? Because the credit cards are stored in Stripe, would the payment process go on seamlessly without having to get the client to input? Okay, so the answer is no. I can't walk you through that during office hours. That's going to be a more complicated thing to do. It might be worth a live stream in itself, but that's a bigger than an office hours kind of question. However, I'll answer it this way. First of all, Gene, do you own the Stripe account that these are being processed through? And you just connected that to the PM tool? Awesome. So you can log into that Stripe account. You can see all your customers and their subscriptions and so forth. Great. So is Stripe sending the customer an email or receipt every month in addition to your PM tool, or is only your PM tool sending the receipt? The subscriptions are not built in Stripe. Okay, well, that's not the end of the world, but the customer is there and their payment method is there in Stripe, right? So what you'll need to do is just go make sure, first of all, that in your business settings in Stripe, all the branding is there, your logo and your colors and that sort of thing. Assuming that's the case, then what you'll need to do is go in and just set up Stripe subscriptions for each client for the amount that they're paying. What you'll set it up, you'll set the date that it's due, and then it'll go automatically. You'll tell it to bill the card on file. It's really, really simple to do that. And I was just telling somebody about this the other day. Stripe has invested clearly a lot of money in their chat tool. And if you haven't tried it lately, their little chat bot that's down there in the bottom right, you click the little bubble and it pops up. It used to be it would try to answer some things, but then it would hand you off to a human. They've really invested in that tool because I was even able to drop in an invoice ID and it was able to show me what went wrong. Like it could access that and see what was the problem and tell me what to do to fix it, all in the AI chat. It's remarkable. So I say all that, Gene, to say you could describe the situation to the Stripe chatbot and it would tell you what to do and how to set up the subscription. It's pretty simple. So because the customer exists in Stripe and because their payment, the key there is their card exists in Stripe. And if that's the case, all you have to do is go to the customer record and add a subscription. What you'll do as you create a subscription, you'll create that first product for the price and you mark it as recurring. And then it'll exist for all the other subscriptions that you add and you just add it. Yep. You tell it when to start. You could say the first of next month and boom, there it goes. And then make sure that Stripe also is set to email a receipt to the client when it's billed. And just let your clients know we're transitioning billing systems and you'll receive a receipt whenever your card is billed on the first of each month or whenever it is. So Gene, yeah. So if some clients have a different pricing model, yeah, like we've got prices, all kinds of different prices just for basic usage and whatever. And so there's probably, I don't know, 30 or 40, just especially over the years as we've upgraded our pricing, we've probably got 30, 40, 50 different subscription products out there. But once you set it up, like let's say this client is at $149 a month, that 149 product exists. And if you have another client at that level, you just add it and it'll go onto their subscription. I really don't think you'll have a problem with it, Gene. It's pretty straightforward. And if you do, that chatbot is quite good. All right. Next question also from Gene. Gene is making suggestions for live stream topics. Can I please talk about how I use it? How I use Notion. Specifically wondering how to manage notes and client data like a support system. Way bigger, unfortunately, Gene, for an office hours question than we could get to. So I would say Notion is the place where all the stuff I need to remember lives. So years ago, I used Evernote for this role in my world. Now I use Notion for this, and it's just where everything lives. I know some folks use it as a project management tool. I would discourage you from doing that. I don't think that's a really good idea. I think you're going to run in, it's not built for that. It's built to be a notes tool that has a lot of other features, but project management, I wouldn't try that. I would go with an actual project management tool or something like Trello. Katie loves Obsidian. Obsidian's it's very similar to Notion. Let's see. We have one more question come in and we'll wrap things up. This one, last question of the day goes to Dave. Oh, Alvin, thank you. Kitchen.co. I mentioned this at the end of last year. Can I spell it? Kitchen.co is quite good. I did a trial of this. I couldn't justify the business reason for moving into Kitchen, but it would potentially have eliminated 2 tools for us. But it's not something, there's not a good enough business reason for me to move into it. Gene, try this. You may find this works really well for what you want to do. They also have a free level, Gene, that I think will work for you because it's going to give you 2 internal users free forever, a bunch of storage, tasks and boards and all that stuff. It is also, like, at its heart, Kitchen.co is a client portal, like where you can have them upload images and text and stuff for you for a website build, that sort of thing. It's pretty good. And David, I love this. David is saying he tried it, didn't like the interface. And isn't that true for all these tools? Like there's some of them that I love and somebody else is going to hate. It's just the way we're wired and how we like to use tools. So my old long-time recommendation still stands. Use the tool that you hate the least because none of them is going to be perfect. Use the one you hate the least. All right. Last but certainly not least, Dave, let's get this question finished and we'll move. We'll start to land the plane here. Dave, what do you recommend for email functionality for a website? I'm currently using WP Mail SMTP, the free version, and I'm on SiteGround right now. Well, Dave, I am happy to tell you that on the 20th of this month, I will be talking about that exact issue. You can sign up for this live stream called Who Stole My Email? Right there at the link in the chat, and we'll be talking about this exact issue. Long story short, I use Postmark and recommend Postmark as a transactional email provider, but we're going to walk through all this stuff. We're going to walk through the alphabet soup of what goes into email deliverability at a high. We're not going to get like deep in the weeds, but at a high level, so we have a good understanding of how those things work. And then some tools and practical recommendations for making sure when WordPress sends an email, it lands in the inbox. So make sure you sign up for that if you haven't already. That's going to be a fun one. All right, everybody, that is going to wrap us up for this office hours. This was a fun day. So glad you joined me. Lots of great questions today. We are back next. Quick announcement. There will not be office hours next Thursday. I will be traveling next Thursday and unable to do office hours. So the next time we see each other will be for that Who Stole My Email live stream, which is on Tuesday, January the 20th. and of course, every other Thursday after that. So thanks again for hanging out with me. I will see you in a couple weeks for Who Stole My Email here on Hosting.com's Agency Success, where we go further together.